I want you to imagine a perfectly normal morning. Like you're just sitting in your kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window.
Yeah, totally ordinary.
Right. Maybe you're reading the news, drinking a cup of coffee. Everything is completely, utterly ordinary. And then, without any warning at all, without a single symptom, you slip into an unbreakable sleep.
Wow. Out of nowhere.
Exactly. You just settle sideways in your chair, your eyes close, and you never wake up again.
It's a terrifying image, primarily because, well, it defies every established rule of how the human body normally fails.
Yeah.
I mean, we have come to expect a preamble to medical emergencies.
Yeah, a warning sign.
Right, a fever, a sharp pain, a localized numbness, some sort of signal that the system is crashing.
Right. But for 72-year-old Martha Bell, there was absolutely nothing. She was the very first victim of what would become just a terrifying global phenomenon.
The first of many.
Yeah. So today, our mission in this deep dive is to explore a massive stack of sources. We've got leaked medical logs from Ashmoor General, recently declassified military reports, and the newly released excerpts from the book The Wardens of the Door.
It's a lot to go through.
It really is. We are going to trace the chilling chronological progression of what the media dubbed somnolence syndrome, or the sleeping disease, and we're going to examine how a localized, incredibly bizarre medical anomaly in the small town of Ashmoor essentially unraveled the very purpose of human consciousness.
Which is a heavy thing to think about.
Totally. Okay, let's unpack this. Because from a purely medical standpoint, Martha's condition makes zero sense.
It really doesn't. I mean, when Martha Bell collapsed at her kitchen table, her husband naturally assumed she had suffered a massive stroke.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, it's the most logical assumption for a sudden collapse in an elderly patient. But when the paramedics arrived, and later when the neurologists examined her at the hospital, they were faced with this profound paradox.
A total medical mystery.
Exactly. Her heartbeat was completely stable. Her breathing was normal, deep, and rhythmic. But her brain activity wasn't just active, it was off the charts.
Which is the exact opposite of what you'd expect, right? I mean, if someone is in a coma, their brain function drops.
Right.
They're powering down to save energy.
Exactly. But Martha's mind was firing on all cylinders. She was burning caloric energy at a rate that suggested she was awake and engaged in intense, grueling cognitive labor.
Wow.
It was as if she were taking an advanced calculus exam while running a marathon, all while her physical body remained entirely flaccid and unresponsive.
That is so freaky. And this wasn't an isolated incident, because if this were a virus or a bacteria, you'd expect a geographical spread.
Right, you'd trace it back to contaminated water.
Yeah, or track it through sneezes and coughs. But it didn't behave like a typical pathogen. It behaved almost like a coordinated digital network coming online.
That's a great way to put it.
It went from 1 case Martha to 3 cases by the end of the week. Then 11, then 32.
And the locations of the collapses were completely sporadic. There was no epicenter.
Just totally random.
Yeah, people were dropping in the middle of grocery store aisles, falling asleep at their desks, in elementary classrooms, collapsing beside their cars in parking lots. Just
boom, asleep.
And once they were asleep, they stayed asleep. The medical staff at Ashmoor General tried everything in the modern medical arsenal. I mean, powerful stimulants, immense pain responses, heavy chemical intervention.
And nothing worked.
Nothing could break the cycle.
I can only imagine the sheer panic in a small town like Ashmoor. You know, families are crowding the hospital waiting rooms, demanding answers.
Very chaos.
Right. And the doctors are looking at a disease with absolutely no visible vector. But finding a disease that makes people sleep is one thing. Where this shifts from a strange medical mystery to something deeply unsettling is the audio component.
Oh, the whispering.
Yes, because the patients weren't just lying there silently, they were whispering.
Softly, but constantly. Every single unconscious patient. The nurses working the overnight shifts were the first to catch the anomaly.
Imagine walking into that room.
They'd walk through the darkened wards and hear this murmuring, this strange, overlapping rhythm of voices from people who were technically in a state of profound unconsciousness.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around that, because finding an ancient language is bizarre enough. But linguists didn't just have a vocabulary problem on their hands, they had a physics problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, how do 50 unconscious people in separate rooms start speaking the exact same words at the exact same millisecond?
It was a logistical nightmare for the researchers. They brought in linguistic experts to analyze the recordings, expecting to find some form of mass psychogenic babble.
Just nonsense words.
Right. Instead, they found a highly structured language. But it was a chimera-like, a horrifying mix of
What
fragments.
kind of fragments?
Well, there was some Latin, some ancient Sumerian, but it was all blended together with impossible guttural syllables from something far, far older. There was no historical precedent for this specific linguistic structure.
And it wasn't just that they were speaking this impossible language, it was the
The
synchronization.
timing was perfect.
Yeah, entire hospital wards were whispering the exact same phrases simultaneously. Imagine walking down a hospital hallway and hearing 50 people who were totally asleep perfectly syncing up their words like a choir.
It sends shivers down your spine.
I keep thinking about it like hundreds of broken radios suddenly tuning into the exact same obscure frequency at the exact same time. Like, if they are totally unconscious and have never met, how is this level of biological coordination even possible?
That was the exact question facing Dr. Elias Vance.
Right, the neurologist.
Yeah, he was a prominent neurologist specializing in rare degenerative sleep disorders, and he was brought into Ashmoor during the second month of the outbreak.
And he was pretty skeptical at first, wasn't he?
Oh, he came in as a total skeptic, fully expecting to find mass hysteria, or perhaps the highly localized, bizarre environmental toxin in the groundwater.
Sure, something logical.
But when he looked at the brain scans, he realized the radio analogy you just used is frighteningly accurate.
So what exactly were the scans showing? Because if I'm asleep, my brain is just throwing random memories at the
Yeah.
wall, it's chaotic.
Right. Normal REM sleep is highly scattered. It pulls from your daily residual thoughts, emotional stress, random visual memories.
Just a mess of neurons.
Exactly. But Vance noticed that every single sleeping patient was showing identical neural activity patterns.
Identical.
Yes. And more importantly, the specific neural regions lighting up were heavily concentrated in the areas associated with spatial recognition and geographical navigation.
Wait, spatial navigation.
Yeah.
So they aren't just having random chaotic dreams. If their spatial processing centers are synchronized, they're literally walking around somewhere.
Precisely. The data strongly suggested that their brains were actively rendering, processing, and navigating a specific shared location.
They were all in the same place.
They are all occupying the same environment.
Okay, because the patients are spatially navigating this shared environment, the medical response has to completely shift. Like, Vance realizes he can't just treat the physical body lying in the bed anymore.
No, the body is just a vessel at that point.
Right. If he wants to cure them, he has to physically look at where the patient's minds are going.
Yes, and this leads to the turning point in the Ashmoor logs. Vance pushes for highly experimental neural mapping.
And he uses it on a teenager, right?
He selects a 14-year-old girl named Lily Grayson, who had been asleep for 21 days at that point.
As a parent, a teenager sleeping for 3 weeks almost sounds like a vacation until you realize you can't wake them up with a bucket of water or a marching band.
It's terrifying.
21 days is incredible. Her body is entirely sustained by an intravenous drip.
It's a terrifying state of medical limbo. Now, the neural mapping equipment Vance utilized was bleeding-edge technology.
Like experimental stuff.
Very. It was originally designed to allow partial visualization of dream state imagery for trauma patients.
How does that even work?
Well, think of the human visual cortex like a monitor cable. By tracking exactly which synapses fire, when Lily processed light, shadow, and geometry in her mind, the computer could reverse engineer those electrical signals back into pixels on a screen.
That is insane.
It's essentially wiretapping the optic nerve.
Mm-hmm.
No one expected it to work clearly on a comatose patient. They expected blurry shapes, maybe some distorted abstract movement.
But the image stabilizes.
Yeah.
And what they see on that monitor, it's chilling.
Very clear.
It's an ancient, enormous black city. The sky above it is this oppressive crimson color, but there are no stars, no sun.
Just dark.
Yeah, there's dark water surrounding everything, and towering buildings that stretch on endlessly. But the most disturbing part is the population. Thousands of human figures walking silently through the streets.
All of them asleep in the real world.
Just wandering around.
All of them physically present in the city. Every single patient in Ashmoor who was subsequently mapped show the exact same imagery.
They all saw the same city.
They were all rendering the same cobblestone streets, the same black towers.
And the focal point of all of this, the thing every street seemed to lead toward, was an enormous organic door at the center of the city.
A door bigger than the buildings themselves.
Exactly. The patients in the hospital wards whispering in that impossible language. Vance eventually manages to translate fragments of it, and they are constant warnings.
What kind of warning?
Things like, he's beneath it, and don't let him hear you.
It was a collective, terrified obsession within the shared space.
Hold on, I need to stop and challenge this concept for a second. You're calling this a shared dream, but if highly detailed, identical architecture is being simultaneously rendered by thousands of disconnected brains down to the individual bricks on the street.
Yeah.
At what point do we stop calling this a hallucination and start classifying it as an actual alternate dimension? Like, that's a physical place they're logging into, right?
What's fascinating here is how the boundary between biology and reality completely dissolves.
Dissolves how?
If you think about the human brain, not just as an organ, but as an incredibly powerful processing unit, what Vance was observing wasn't a hallucination in the traditional psychological sense.
Okay.
The human mind was being hijacked. It was being utilized not for rest, not for cognitive recovery, but as a server farm.
A biological server farm.
Yes. Think of it like distributed computing.
Right.
When scientists need to process massive amounts of data, like mapping the genome or simulating black holes, they link thousands of computers together to pool their processing power.
To handle the load.
That is exactly what was happening in Ashmoor. Thousands of human brains were being networked together, pooling their raw neural power to host and maintain this massive shared digital-like reality.
Wow.
Their consciousness was the hardware running the solation of this black city and that enormous door.
But the sheer weight of whatever is behind that door, whatever they are running on their biological servers, it begins to physically manifest in the real world.
It pushes back.
Yeah, it can't stay contained in the neural maps. The effort of keeping the simulation running forces the physical bodies of the patients to move.
The bleeding of the digital back into the physical. This is where the medical protocols completely collapsed because it defied the laws of human anatomy.
Right, it starts with 23-year-old Daniel Reeves. He's been unconscious for nearly 2 weeks, and at exactly 3:14 a.m., he just stands up from his hospital bed.
Eyes completely closed.
His eyes are closed. The medical monitors still show him in a state of deep, unbreakable unconsciousness. But he walks silently through the hospital corridors, slips past the nurse's station, and vanishes into an underground stairwell.
The first sleepwalker.
The very first.
And he disappeared without a trace. I mean, despite a full police search of the hospital and the surrounding grounds, he was just gone.
Wait, a guy who has been bedridden on an IV for 2 weeks shouldn't even have the muscle mass to walk down a hallway, let alone navigate a stairwell and evade a police search.
Exactly.
Yeah, his legs should have buckled instantly.
From a physiological standpoint, you are entirely correct. The atrophy alone should have kept him bedbound.
Right. He shouldn't be able to stand.
But the neural override was so absolute, it was forcing the body to bypass its own safety mechanisms and pain receptors.
That is terrifying.
And soon, the dam breaks entirely. Other patients start rising from their beds in the middle of the night, always silently, always with your eyes closed.
Like zombies.
And there's a migration. They aren't just wandering aimlessly around the hospital. They're all heading out the doors into the deep forest north of Ashmoor.
Into the woods.
Search teams would go into the woods and find these people, just standing there, like statues among the trees, facing north, always north, and constantly whispering.
It gets worse because Dr. Vance himself eventually becomes infected. Like, he's been studying this so closely, running himself ragged, surviving on coffee, hardly sleeping himself, and the disease catches him.
He was too close to it.
Yeah, he slips under. He starts experiencing the city directly. At first, it's just fragments, the smell of the black water, the whispering streets. But then he's fully in it.
He's there.
He's standing before the giant organic door, and he has a conversation that changes the entire trajectory of this deep dive.
Yes. He meets Martha Bell, the very first victim from the kitchen table.
The first case.
But inside the dream, inside the shared neural architecture, she isn't asleep anymore. She is awake, self-aware, and she is absolutely terrified.
She looks at him and asks, "What is this place?" And then she reveals the crucial, devastating truth of the disease.
Such a chilling moment.
She says, "We were never supposed to stop dreaming. It's where sleeping minds go to keep him buried." And right as she says that, there is a single massive knock from behind the door.
Who?
A knock so powerful that the entire dream city physically shakes.
The architectural stability of the shared dream was faltering under the pressure of whatever was trapped inside.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if we look at what Martha said, it completely flips our understanding of human biology. So human consciousness isn't taking a break when we sleep. We are essentially a biological padlock.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it.
So basically, my brain is doing a grueling night shift as a maximum security prison guard, and I'm not even getting paid for it.
working overtime.
Right. Our dreams are the chains keeping something locked in the basement.
It is a profound paradigm shift. We've always viewed sleep as a passive state, a vulnerability,
A time to rest.
a biological requirement where we shut down to heal and consolidate memories. But Martha's revelation suggests that sleep is actually an active, defensive posture.
We're on guard duty.
And you have to unpack the chilling phrase she gives Vance right after the knock. She says, he's waking up because there aren't enough dreamers left.
There aren't enough dreamers.
Exactly. If you connect the dots, the disease isn't a pathogen trying to harm us. It is a desperate, failing defense mechanism.
This system is crashing.
The padlock is breaking. The entity behind the door is pushing harder, and the normal, everyday amount of human sleep is no longer sufficient to hold the door shut.
It needs more power.
So the system, whatever ancient biological imperative governs this, has to forcibly conscript more minds. It has to draft people into permanent, unbreakable sleep just to generate enough raw neural processing power to reinforce the prison walls.
Okay, understanding that the disease is a desperate defense mechanism completely reframes the terrifying escalation that happens next.
It explains everything.
Right. It's why it suddenly breaks out of a localized quarantine and becomes a global event.
The escalation is incredibly rapid and brutal. Vance violently wakes up in his apartment, gasping for air, blood streaming from his nose.
The physical toll is huge.
His physical body is taking the immense toll of the mental strain from being inside the city. And when he stumbles to his window and looks outside, half the town of Ashmoor has vanished overnight.
It's just gone. Hundreds of sleeping residents just walking silently toward the northern forest at exactly 3:13 a.m.
Just migrating into the dark.
And the authorities try everything. You'd think the military would just roll in, set up concrete barricades, and lock it down.
They tried. They initiated strict military quarantines, set up roadblocks on every highway out of Ashmoor, and enforced total media blackouts.
But it didn't work.
You can't set up a physical barricade against a biological imperative that exists in the mind.
Right, because the soldiers manning the roadblocks were falling asleep at their posts.
They were drafted too.
You've got a heavily armed Humvee blocking a road, and the gunner just slumps over, his eyes close, and he suddenly starts whispering the same ancient Sumerian syllables.
Unbelievable.
Then he opens the door, steps out, and joins the crowd walking into the woods. Cases start appearing in neighboring towns within days. Then it jumps state lines. Then it crosses oceans.
It went global. The whispers spread through intensive care units worldwide. We were talking about people from entirely different cultures, different linguistic backgrounds, who have never even heard of Ashmoor.
All connected now.
Yet they are all speaking the exact same possible language while unconscious.
Wait.
Every single brain scan across the globe, from Tokyo to London, shows identical dream imagery. The black water, the city, the door.
And Vance becomes obsessed with translating the whispers. He pores over the audio recordings from around the world, running them through linguistic algorithms, and he finds one repeating phrase hidden inside the unknown language.
What did it say?
A sentence that appears constantly. He turns in his sleep.
Think about the absolute tragedy of that escalation.
It's off.
He turns in his sleep. A mere shift in posture from the entity behind the door requires millions of human minds to be drafted into permanent comas just to absorb the impact.
Millions of people.
The human body is being pushed past its absolute biological limits, sacrificing itself entirely just to reinforce a failing prison.
And then we get the final transmission from Ashmoor General Hospital.
This is the darkest part.
Right, before all communication from the town ceases completely. The remaining doctors record every single sleeping patient in the hospital sitting upright simultaneously.
All at once.
Again, at exactly 3:13 a.m., thousands of voices whispering together in perfect synchronization. They say, "The last lock is weakening." And then every single patient opens their eyes.
But the EEG monitors confirmed they were still entirely asleep.
Wide-eyed, but unconscious.
The eyes were open, but they were unseeing. They were looking at the crimson sky of the Black City, not the fluorescent lights of the hospital room.
The hospital security footage cuts out, and when hazardous material military teams finally enter Ashmoor 3 days later, the town is empty.
Completely abandoned.
Cars are abandoned in the middle of the streets with the doors open, homes are unlocked, meals are left half-eaten on dining room tables. There are no bodies, no survivors, just thousands of empty beds with tangled sheets. The entire population is gone.
The physical reality of that is staggering. A mass disappearance of an entire municipal population.
Just swallowed by the woods.
It forces the ultimate question that the military command had to confront. Where exactly were the sleepwalkers physically migrating to? They were all walking north into the dense forest. But to what end?
If they're walking north, where are they actually going? And this leads us directly to the terrifying geographical discovery that was hidden in those classified military reports leaked years later.
It wasn't just a dream.
Because the dream wasn't just a metaphor.
No, absolutely not. Once the military tracked the flattened brush and the footprints, they initiated massive covert excavation efforts deep beneath the forest north of Ashmoor.
They dug down.
And miles underground, encased in bedrock, they found a physical structure.
A physical structure older than human civilization. And at the center of this underground complex, they found a massive black door.
The real door.
The physical, geological counterpart to the one in the Dream City. But the detail in the leaked reports that absolutely stops my heart, like the detail that makes you realize just how doomed they were.
This is the part that gets me.
The massive black door was covered in handprints from the inside.
The implications of that discovery are horrifying.
So what does this all mean? The handprints are on the inside. That means whatever is in there has hands, or something like them, and it is actively pushing against the physical barrier.
It's trying to get out.
The dream wasn't just some collective, abstract hallucination. It was a psychic reflection of a one-to-one geographical reality buried right under their feet. The sleepwalkers weren't wandering aimlessly, they were migrating to the physical location of the prison they were mentally guarding.
And before the military sealed the excavation site in absolute terror, pouring millions of tons of concrete down the shaft, the engineering workers reported hearing sounds coming from behind the physical door.
Sounds. What kind of sounds?
Slow, massive breathing that vibrated through the bedrock. And knocking, always at exactly 3:13 a.m.
Man, it fundamentally rewrites the concept of sleep. For you listening right now, think about how we view going to bed. We see it as a passive, vulnerable time of rest.
A break from the world.
A break from the stress of the waking world. But this deep dive forces you to consider what kind of heavy lifting your subconscious might actually be doing while you are offline. Like, what are you guarding when you close your eyes?
It's a deeply unsettling realization, but there's also a strange, terrible beauty in looking at natural human processes through the lens of duty and collective burden.
A collective effort.
We operate as isolated individuals during the day, consumed by our own lives, but at night, we might be part of a massive, unseen whole. The sheer scale of the biological coordination required to keep that door shut is a testament to the unseen power of the human mind, even if it is a power we are completely unaware of wielding.
It definitely makes you look at your pillow a little differently tonight. And it leaves us with one final, very provocative thought to mull over.
What's that?
Martha Bell told Dr. Vance that he's waking up because there aren't enough dreamers left.
Right. When you think about the modern world today, our growing epidemic of insomnia, the late-night doom scrolling on screens, the constant hustle culture that glorifies surviving on 4 hours of sleep.
We barely sleep anymore.
Are we just a tired society? Or is our modern refusal to sleep exactly what is causing the final lock to weaken?